You only need to look at the things that are popular in the theaters to realize that a lot of people love the idea of being able to travel through time and see the future. They love the idea of beings that are more or less or very close to omnipotence, though they, I will acknowledge, like to demonize such beings. But it made me want to write on something that I think, or speak on something, that I think needs to be talked about. I've titled this particular piece A Matter of Perspective, and that's what we're going to talk about today on the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host, I'm Kurt, and today is Sunday the 12th of September of 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Thank you for coming along. Remember, Rumble is my preferred platform, given the opportunity. I would rather you watch me there than just about anywhere else. And today we're going to talk again on the subject of a matter of perspective. And as I usually do, let me go ahead and go through my notes so you can get an idea why I'm going with this subject today. I saw a recent video from Dinesh D'Souza on the idea of the unjustness of God in the expression, Jacob have I loved and Esau have I hated, right? Imagine you can know the future, though, and do so without doubt or question. You see a person of whom you know what is to come and brand them a thief in your mind. Nobody else need know. But you're fully aware it will be the case. From the position of the person so marked, if they knew it were true, they would count it unreasonable. You had to decide they were what you knew they would be. They would count that unreasonable. You had decided, I'm sorry. From your perspective, there's zero question, though, of what will come to pass. And you knew it would be so regardless of your statement of its veracity. In other words, you don't even have to have said that that's what was going to happen. And if you had said it, it was still going to happen regardless whether you hadn't or had. If one assumes there is a God, and I do, and assumes he lives outside the confines of time, that God has such abilities. This is certainly true if one assumes omniscience, that is, that he's all-knowing. Just because God knows who you are before you're even formed doesn't mean you or others do, though. Want to know how God can make a statement like, Jacob have I loved, Esau have I hated? Consider the ideas herein presented. I think by now you probably have it, but let's talk about this for a minute. If I had the ability of prescience, if I could know things before they happened, right? And I knew that somebody was going to be a thief, and I decided that that person was a thief, and that person became a thief even though I never let on that I had any knowledge of that coming to pass in the future, not even changing how I responded or reacted. In fact, I might not even be directly involved with that individual. I may be indirectly so, but I may not directly be so. You would allow me, I think, to say that that person was a thief. You would allow that, right? This is not something that most people would be willing to deny. Okay, it's true. I don't have the ability to see the future, so I can't make statements like that. I have predicted things that have happened over the course of time and predicted them correctly. I've done that probably more often than not because most of the time I'm unwilling to make predictions if I'm not pretty sure what it is that I'm talking about. Does that mean that I'm 100% accurate at that? No. Now let's talk about a God, okay? And let's say that this God was the creator of this universe in which we live. And let's say that prior to the existence of this God, there wasn't a forward motion of time. Let's say that that didn't exist. That would mean that that God is outside of time. And if that God is outside of time, the idea that he can and does know things that others don't know, can't know, is not really an exciting or, amazing one. Now, the initial assertion, of course, is pretty amazing, that there's a being who happened to have made the universe. That's a pretty amazing assertion, and I'll grant that. But if you assume that he had the power to do that, assuming that he did so and that there was no time before he did that. Oh, and by the way, if you make the statement that God is eternal, let's go there as well, because I think you have to. I don't think you really have a choice in that. I don't see any way to get around the idea that God doesn't fit within time. And again, if you make him omniscient, if you make it so that he knows all things, then there's really no way to say that he has the limitations that we account of men. So if God says, I hated this person and I loved that person, you can think what you want about that, but the reality is he has every right to do that, and it really doesn't change whether or not that person behaves in bad ways, right? When we say that a person has free will, what we do not mean by that is that God could not control somebody if he wanted to, and in fact I believe he does in ways that they don't even recognize are happening when they occur. You can try to say that means that person didn't make bad choices. You can try and say Kurt didn't make bad choices because God directed him in the places that he ended up being, and therefore it wasn't Kurt's fault that he made the choices that he did. But I don't know what God's direction is doing for me, whether I'm going to find myself in heaven or not. I have a hope, I have a belief, I have a desire, but it doesn't mean I have a knowledge. So this assumption that I can say it's God's fault that I ended up being bad because he was sort of in ultimate control of things and he knew things before they happened, that's not a reasonable assumption. That's not a reasonable assumption, okay? I still did the things that I did. I still was who I was. I still am who I am, right? So this is kind of a silly thing that people like to present, is this idea that because God knows in advance what's going to happen, that means that he's responsible for my actions if he's stated that I have the ability to do and be whatever it is that I want to do and be. It is a mystery of sorts, to be fair. It is a mystery. How can that be true? But the reality is that doesn't mean that it's not. Means you don't understand it, I don't understand it maybe, but it doesn't mean it's untrue. That's not what it means. So, again, you've got a God, he's outside time, he knows everything. He knows who's going to turn out good, he knows who's going to turn out bad. You can argue that he can push people in directions that make them turn out good, but then you don't have free will, do you? You can argue that he does push people in directions that turn them into bad people. But the assumption is that somehow God allows man to have free will. And if he does, that means that you're the one making the choices and the decisions that you make. That he knows what the outcome of that is beside the point. What the outcomes of that are, if you choose to put it that way. That's beside the point. Does he express to you in every waking moment what the outcomes are? No? Then you can argue that you have a choice. It would be no different than me knowing that my son driving recklessly in traffic was almost certainly ultimately going to get into an accident, but, allowing him to do it, I allowed him the free will. I was pretty sure I knew what was going to happen. Granted, God knows, isn't pretty sure, but I was pretty sure I knew what was going to happen, and I let it happen anyway because I wanted to give my son the opportunity to make those mistakes. I do that all the time with my son, by the way. All the time I say to my son, Garrett, you don't want to do this. You don't want to do that. And sometimes he'll ask why, and sometimes he'll just do the thing that I told him he didn't want to do, and it'll end up causing him some kind of heartache or problem. And I do that because I want him to realize that there are consequences for his actions in my case. But God does it because he wants us to have the will to do the things that we want to do. Not to say that we're not going to be held accountable for having done the things that we did. Again, there is a mystery there, and it is, how can free will exist at all, considering there's a God who's omnipotent, omnipresent, eternal, and omniscient? How can free will exist at all? But the answer is somehow that is something that he is allowing to occur. All right, I need to go ahead and wrap this up. This is the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I'm your host. I'm Kurt. Today is Sunday, the 12th of September of 2021. Tomorrow will be Monday, the 13th of September of 2021. Welcome to everyone who's here on Rumble, on the podcast, and on YouTube. Thank you for coming along. As I said before, remember Rumble is my preferred platform. Got a couple of stumbles of the tongue going on today. You're going to have to forgive me for that. But yes, Rumble is my preferred platform. You can give me a plus or a positive Rumble, or a negative or a minus right Rumble on Rumble. You can give me a thumbs up or a thumbs down on YouTube. That would be a like or dislike. I obviously prefer positive feedback, but if I don't get it, I'll understand, because people didn't like what I was doing. So the one thing I will ask you is, I would love it if you would comment so that I know whether or not I'm producing stuff that you find useful and worth your time. I hope that you're having a good day today, this first day of the Christian week. Tomorrow, obviously, will be the first day of the work week, and we'll come back to that 5-day week for most of us who last week managed to get that 4-day weekend. The subject for today has been a matter of perspective. And tomorrow's subject is another one that Mr. D'Souza brought on, and it's going to be one or the other. And I've seen a couple of people present things on this, so they've stolen my thunder a little bit, but I still think it's a good thing for me to talk about, so I'm going to go ahead and do that tomorrow. Hope you're doing well today, and hopefully we will see you again on Monday's edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. The speaker on this edition of the Daily Summation is Kurt Schubert. This video was recorded on Sunday, September 12th of 2021. The Daily Summation is created for Kurt's Religion and Politics. Thanks for watching this edition of the Daily Summation from Kurt's Religion and Politics. I hope you found it entertaining or instructional, or maybe both. If you want to see more from me, you can go to blogs.kpschubert.com. That's blogs.kpschubert.com. I am on Twitter, Parler, and Minds.com. My handle on each of those is @kpschubert. That's @kpschubert. I have a Rumble and a YouTube channel. They are the Kurt's Religion and Politics channels on Rumble and YouTube. I have a Facebook page. The Facebook page is Kurt's Religion and Politics as well. I am on Patreon. If you want to support me, that's one of the better places you can do that. And you will find me at Kurt's Religion and Politics on Patreon. I have a podcast. The podcast is podcasts with an S, .kpschubert.com. That's podcasts.kpschubert.com. I think you should be able to find me with relative ease on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify as well. The best way I find to do that is to look for Kurt's Religion and Politics. You can try to use the Daily Summation. I find that it doesn't work as well as a general rule, but you can always try that. I'm glad to have you aboard today, and hopefully we will see you again tomorrow.